Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another election slash political video. This time we're taking a look at the 2032 electoral map and how it's going to change in the future based on the forecast we have so far. Before I get into this, if you aren't subscribed to the channel already, you should totally subscribe if you enjoy political prediction videos like this one. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So starting off, we're going to go state by state here and how each state's going to lose electoral votes or gain electoral votes. We're going to start off with the losers first. So based on the American Redistricting Project map, they're pretty much doing like a forecast on what's going to happen to each state's electoral votes. We're just going to get started with it. So first off, Rhode Island's losing one electoral vote. New York, previously in their maps, they had New York losing multiple electoral votes back in the 2020 census, and New York almost kept their electoral votes from 2020 to 2024. They only lost it due to like 80 something people. They would have kept their 29. So it's possible that they're undercounting voters in New York City, and New York could only lose one electoral vote. I definitely do think it's going to lose at least one, though. But their forecast basically says they're losing two. So, yeah. Pennsylvania's also losing one, which kind of makes sense. Most of the Rust Belt is losing an electoral vote here. Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Minnesota almost lost electoral vote last time around. Oregon, even though they just gained that electoral vote, they are now losing it. And in California, which is really not shocking to me, I really expected this, California is losing 3 electoral votes. So now that we've finished up with the losers, let's get into the winners. Starting off with Idaho, they are gaining an electoral vote. Utah is also gaining an electoral vote. Arizona is also gaining an electoral vote. I was kind of surprised they didn't gain one last time after the 2020 census. And then Texas and Florida, which is kind of crazy how much they're gaining. They're gaining 4 electoral votes east, which is just huge for the Republicans. That's a pretty massive shift in their favor in the Electoral College. So now we're just going to go through some scenarios here of how does this change the electoral map. First off, we're going to look at how the electoral map changes when compared to the 2024 election in terms of its electoral votes. So we're just going to fill in all the states Trump won in 2024 as red. Now all the states that Harris won in 2024. Press a second, Maine. And there's Alaska. So it's a pretty massive, I wouldn't say a massive difference, but it's a pretty substantial advantage towards the Republicans here. So Republicans go from 312 electoral votes to 321, while the Democrats go from 226 to 217. So that is a pretty sizable difference. It's not earth-shattering, though, but it does change a lot of the electoral map in terms of the swing states. So now we're going to be filling the toss-up states that were pretty close in 2024. I also include New Hampshire because it was decided by under 3%. So that's definitely a swing state. Arizona, it was decided by about 5. So I guess we could put Minnesota on the board as well because that was under 5 here. So taking a look at it, Republicans start off with 229 safe electoral votes to the Democrats' 204. So this is going to be pretty hard for the Democrats to win in 2032. They really have to hope for either an unpopular President Vance if he wins in 2028, or they have to hope that if they win in 2020, the Democrats, that they have a popular incumbent president. So really, the Democrats, I think their best way of doing this is to ensure they got to win the 2028 election. That would set them up very well for 2032 because usually incumbency is a good thing to have. It's not always a bad thing, which it has been in the past. It has been a pretty bad thing. 2020 and 2024 are examples of that. So let's just get into the scenarios. So most of the time, Democrats are going to win Minnesota. The state has not gone to the Republicans since 1972. It's one of the longest Democratic streets in the country. So obviously, it's probably not going to go red unless it's a landslide. New Hampshire has pretty much been very Democratic throughout most of this time. It was pretty close in 2016 and 2024, though. but it's usually voting for the Democrats. Arizona, just Republican trends here. This state most of the time is probably going to go red in presidential elections. In Nevada, Republicans have been doing really well in terms of registration numbers there, getting a lot of voters on their side. So most of the time, this state would be red. So really, these 5 states are states that Democrats could win the remaining toss-up wins. So, for example, let's look at the Sun Belt instead of the Rust Belt here. The Republican candidate in 2032 could just win North Carolina and Georgia, and they were winning the presidency here. They're already above 270 electoral votes, so that's a pretty significant change here. It used to be that the Democrat could just win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, plus Nebraska second, and then we would be above 270 electoral votes. So that really hurts Democrats' chances here because now they're forced to win either Georgia or North Carolina to have a winning map. And that would just get them barely across. There's also the chance that, let's say, Republicans, they redraw the maps in Nebraska, or they get rid of their by congressional district system. Let's say they change to winner take all in Nebraska. Then they could just either just flip some other random state out here. Maybe they could win. Okay, so let's just put them at 264. Maybe they could win New Mexico and force a tie, but that's probably not going to happen. Maybe they could win potentially, I don't know, New Hampshire, but it still isn't enough here. So really, as long as Democrats just win Georgia and the 3 Rust Belt states up here, they have a pretty viable path to the presidency right here. But another big problem is we're talking about registration numbers like we did in Nevada and Arizona. Republicans are also gaining pretty massively in the state of Pennsylvania in terms of registration numbers. They might even take the advantage in this state by 2026 in terms of those numbers. So let's say that Pennsylvania goes red. So now they have to run the board on the rest of these states. They have to win Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia. Now in Wisconsin and Georgia, Harris actually did very decent or good in Wisconsin out of all the swing states. That was the closest one. So Democrats still have a future in the state of Wisconsin. Democrats also have a pretty good future in the state of Georgia. A lot of Georgia still trended to the left, and the suburban regions still shifted more bluer in Georgia. So they have good futures in Wisconsin and Georgia still. Michigan kind of voted similarly to Pennsylvania. We saw big shifts with the Arab population in Michigan shifting towards Trump. That could just be just a dot in history here, like because it was just due to the conflict in Gaza and that Harris didn't really respond effectively enough to that. That could be a big reason why Michigan voted Republican. So maybe it was just an aberration here that it voted that red, almost very much in line with Pennsylvania. Democrats should still win back Michigan, in my opinion. But North Carolina, again, registration numbers, it's not as bad as it is in Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona, but Republicans are still gaining in North Carolina long term. So strategically, the Democrats really need to focus on these 2 states in the future. North Carolina and Georgia. They need to build this instead of relying on a blue wall, which has failed 2 out of the 3 times that blue wall methodology or the blue wall saying came up with in 2016. It failed 2 out of those 3 times for the Democrats. They should probably try to build a southern wall here in Georgia and North Carolina because that would help them win without Pennsylvania here. Because it is possible for them to win Wisconsin and Michigan while Pennsylvania stays red. It's not always a golden rule that those 3 states always vote in line together, but they usually do. But Wisconsin really voted a 1% difference almost compared to Pennsylvania. So that shows that golden rule might fall apart in future elections. So just looking at this is a potential way Democrats could win in the future without relying on Pennsylvania. And that's definitely possible. They really just need to work on North Carolina because they got the trends going well for them in Georgia. They did well in Wisconsin in 2024, which was kind of surprising. It voted the most left out of all the swing states, out of those like 7 original swing states I was talking about. New Hampshire did vote the most left out of the 8 swing states, but again, Democrats have good chances in Georgia and Wisconsin. It's really just North Carolina and Michigan that they should really try to target here. And they shouldn't give up on Pennsylvania because, again, that's 18 electoral votes on the board here. That's the biggest amount of electoral votes out of any swing state. So I still think it's winnable. They just need to focus on those voter registration numbers because that just makes the electorate more and more harder for you to win in a state when one party's just constantly gaining voter registration numbers. Like we saw in Arizona, Republicans had a turnout advantage of like plus 9% compared to the Democrats. They had just plus 9 electorate for them, and that's why Trump won the state by 5. So I think voter registrations are very important. That's how we could tell shifts in these states. Like that's how we were able to tell that Florida was becoming safe red just based off the voter registration numbers of the Republicans constantly gaining every month. So Democrats really should just focus on North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin to build potential paths without the swing state of Pennsylvania because, again, those numbers kind of look pretty bleak for the Democrats, if we're being honest. But yeah, let me just reset all these swing states here. So looking at the 2032 electoral map, it looks pretty beneficial for Republicans because they're getting huge gains in Texas and Florida. And this will make it very hard for Democrats to win in 2032. It makes the 2028 election very pivotal for them because whoever wins the 2028 election will probably be the incumbent president, and they'll have a pretty big advantage in 2032. And the Democrats really want that incumbency advantage in 2032, and I think they probably need it in some of these cases unless the economy like collapses or something before the 2032 election. But that's kind of how I see this 2032 redistricting cycle going. It just makes it that much harder for Democrats to win the presidency in the future, unless we see some massive changes here. Like, I don't know, but I don't think we're going to see any other of these red states flip blue, honestly. I think a lot of these red states on this map here are probably going to stay red because they just had a lot of trends in their favor. Well, the Republicans had a lot of trends in their favor going into here. But yeah, that's just me talking about the 2032 election. It's pretty far away, but it's interesting to talk about what the census numbers will look like that'll impact the apportionment forecast or the apportionment in 2030. Other than that, thanks so much for watching. And if you're new to this channel, you should totally subscribe and enjoy political videos like this one. And let me see some comments down below of any video recommendation ideas. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.